My name is Chris Barron. I'm an ANZ employee and finance sector union worker, and I'm here today to raise a question on behalf of all my colleagues. But before I continue, I would like to acknowledge the follow-through and commitment from the chair, the board, the CEO from the last AGM to return to the bargaining table and work with the FSU towards a new enterprise agreement. Throughout our bargaining process, my colleagues, members of the union, were pleased to see management listen to concerns around pay and conditions at ANZ. The agreement brings a dated document into the modern day with agreement on pay increases, leave entitlements, work conditions expected in a modern enterprise. While we believe that there is more work to be done, the final proposal was supported by the majority of staff, and that's something that we can be proud of. However, over the same period, throughout 2023, we've seen accelerated change across the bank. An ongoing branch closure program continues to close more and more branches each year, and branch staff are left wondering where they belong, especially those in Queensland and in regional areas. In central sites, role changes made to support work around our ageing technology, rather than allowing bankers to be supported by technology in delivering for customers. This is happening at the same time as expansion of offshore roles. The combination of these factors has left many of my colleagues anxious about their future with ANZ and their livelihoods. Question for the board. Would you and the board commit to the staff there'll be no significant job losses throughout 2024, providing certainty over job security given the stellar result this last financial year?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. And we should note, and thank also the FSU for your collaboration, there was a 91% yes vote, which is an amazingly positive result. So clearly great work on all sides. The role of the board and the fiduciary responsibility of a director, the legal responsibility of a director, is to act in the best interests of the business. And for an employee, I believe it's totally aligned. You would want your board and your management to be thinking, how can we make sure this business is the healthiest and is the best place to work in the long term? And regretfully, that does sometimes mean that when there's so much change going on around us, that we have to change roles, we need different skills than the mix we have today. If we simply stayed still, we wouldn't be looking after the business or our employees. So there is change. Shane may want to add to this in a moment, but we actually have quite a lot of discussion at the board around this topic. We understand that there's a lot of work goes on, for example, when a branch closes, on redeploying staff, on reskilling staff where appropriate, and that we have a fairly high success rate. But what we can't commit to is that there won't be any change. Clearly, to be responsive, we need to keep changing. Shane, anything you'd like to add?
Not really. I think that's right. I mean, thank you for the comments. I mean, the reality is we live in a changing world and we need to be able to respond, and our people need to be able to respond as well. I mean, the reality is, just to sort of reassure the broader audience in the group, the total number of people at ANZ, and it's disclosed in there, and we do it on a full-time equivalent basis, is pretty much the same this year as it was the year before and the year before. There's about 40,000 people who work at ANZ. About half of those live in Australia, and that number hasn't really changed much. There is undoubtedly, though, within the group, as you mentioned, there's change, right? There's going to be less people working in a branch, there's going to be more people working in technology, etc. Our job is to make sure that we give our people the best opportunities to be trained, develop, learn, adapt, and have those opportunities. I think we do a pretty good job on that. But, I don't know what the world's going to look like in a year's time. We have to respond to the reality of the environment. We have to grow where we can grow. Sometimes we have to shrink because services aren't wanted anymore. As the commitment we can make is that we will continue to invest in, the best development opportunities we can for the people who are impacted, and be as transparent and open as we can be through any process like that. And I totally understand the point that can be stressful for those that are impacted. But thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Well, that leads beautifully into the follow-on question. Will you commit to working with the Finance Sector Union on skills investment and training programs so current employees are future ready with the skills they need rather than redundancies?
I think we have a pretty good relationship with the FSU. I think more, and with all due respect to the FSU, I think we have an even better relationship with our people. And, the reality is that's why we have an 87% engagement score. And I sort of flicked over that in our speech, but I'm proud of it, so I'd like to just share a little bit more with our shareholders. That means that 87% of our people here in Australia and right across, and it's pretty uniform actually, are really, really highly engaged with the bank. Now you might think, what does that mean? That number is the best in class for any industry, not just banks, anywhere in the world. And so that means our people are with us. That doesn't mean that life's perfect, and I accept that, and I totally get that there's going to be change and not everybody's comfortable with that. But our people believe in what we're doing, and they believe in the purpose, and they believe in the strategy, and they want to be part of it. So, our commitment is to be as transparent as we can be about the change and bring as many people along as possible. Very happy to have dialogues with the FSU, which we do in a very, open, I think, way, and we'll continue to do so.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So second question there. So while I work for ANZ in a central site in Melbourne, I actually grew up in Townsville in North Queensland. So no stranger to fires, floods, cyclones, unfortunately. My mum was a Suncorp staff member for many, many years. So I know, growing up, I knew how important it was that local branches are to the community. So now I work in a retail distribution within the broker network, helping brokers and customers meet their goals with ANZ, whether it's their first home, their next home, or building their future through investment. Proud of the work that I do to help customers achieve these goals, which is part of our purpose as a bank. It's expressly stated in our values. It's something that we're all very proud of, and something particularly the retail broker distribution is very excited about leading into the future. However, fellow staff and I are deeply dismayed to learn that ANZ is the biggest financier of fossil fuels and fossil fuel expansion since the Paris Agreement. Our bank says, this is internal comms, the most important role we can play in the transition to net zero is to support our customers through reduced emissions. But it doesn't seem like our actions are matching this commitment to the level that we would expect. Undoubtedly, ANZ has a huge role to play in financing the energy transition away from fossil fuels. If our coal, oil and gas clients need financial support to diversify into clean renewable energy, then ANZ should absolutely be backing them to do so. The reality is so many of our clients are not transitioning away from fossil fuels, but are indeed expanding these activities. A question whether we are helping our fossil fuel clients reduce their emissions when some of them haven't yet made commitments to walk away from new and expanded coal, oil and gas projects they propose to build. While we lend to or arrange finance for companies developing new and expanded fossil fuels, they continue to reach final investment decisions on projects that are completely incompatible with a 1.5C world. I'm worried that we're not helping our customers transition, but enabling them to expand by not properly assessing the climate risks involved in financing certain companies. The climate crisis is urgent, and the bank should be acting like it is by refusing to finance companies with no intention of transitioning away from fossil fuels. We urgently need to transition away from fossil fuels to clean, renewable energy. The bank needs to draw a line in the sand to show genuine climate leadership. ANZ employees were not consulted about this latest climate policy, and we haven't been given a chance to have any input on the bank's fossil fuel lending policy would look like. I ask that the ANZ commits to involving workers when developing its climate policies in the future. Will you commit to consulting, listening to and engaging with staff when it comes to fossil fuel lending?
Thank you, and can I just clarify a few things? One is, as I pointed out, we are committed to our financing of energy customers being consistent with a reduction in emissions over time. Secondly, oil and gas represents less than 0.5% of our lending today. We've reduced it by 30% since 2020. We'll have reduced it by 40% by 2025. So there's actually quite active work by the bank to be responsible in this space. We always listen to staff, and I think we'll continue to engage. Shane?
Sure. I mean, I don't think it's appropriate that we consult with staff on every single... We have loads of policies and things that we have to do and make decisions every day. But as you know, as a member of staff, me and my team are pretty transparent and available. We have all sorts of big calls where staff can ask questions, put their thoughts up, and we take all of that very seriously. So in the board, I think we are listening to our staff. And I just want to say, to reinforce what the chairman's saying, we are totally committed to net zero. All we're talking about here is that there's a disagreement about the path and the way to get there. That's what we're debating, and that's a healthy debate. We are absolutely committed to net zero. And it absolutely influences the decisions that we make every single day. Who we bank, what we bank, where we will lend, where we will not lend, who we'll deal with, how we behave. It impacts all of those things every single day. And it may be not the most important thing that we're doing. It's certainly one of the most important things that we're doing as a company. And I can assure you that my team and I spend a huge amount of time working this through to make sure that what we're doing is responsible and balanced and meeting the needs of all of the stakeholders, including local communities, but also making sure that we are enabling a just transition towards net zero as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your
questions.
questions.
The commitment, Shane. Thank you.